Welcome back to Starting Six, a volleyball podcast with Haley and Liv. This is big episode 10. We're in the double digits. That's very exciting. And we're going to kind of just jump right into it today because, again, we have a big recap of games that have happened since we recorded Tuesday, and then our episode went up Wednesday morning. So we have Tuesday night games to touch on. Obviously, we have Volleyball Day in Nebraska that took place Wednesday night, and then there's been a few more games since then leading into this weekend. So we're just going to do a big recap, and then we're going to round out the episode with our starters and our benched this week. Very exciting. So, yes. Okay, so just to kick it off, Liv, do you have anything that you want to start with, or should we start with Tuesday night?
Let's start with Tuesday night.
Okay, so what I have for Tuesday night is number 7 defeated number 5 Minnesota. So number 7 Texas, not just number 7. Number 7 Texas, reigning national champions, defeated number 5 Minnesota at Minnesota. The only key takeaways I had from this is that Texas just looked like Texas.
Yeah.
I don't think that their ranking is reflecting on the game they're playing at all. I think that unranked loss just killed them. Yeah, I think it just moved them down so far. But I definitely think watching that Texas is the stronger of the teams, of them in Minnesota. So I wasn't super surprised with the outcome. I was a little bummed to see Minnesota's hot streak kind of end because I kind of feel like we've watched Minnesota claw their way through seasons. And, they're always going down swinging, but they're never kind of always coming out on top. Yeah. So, with this new era starting at Minnesota, I think they look great. I just think that Texas played a much better game.
Yeah, I think Texas is just solid all around. They had a huge block. I think that Minnesota really struggled to get around, especially their outside hitters. They're predominant hitters. But Texas looked solid. And again, I think it was just a fluke. Their first match of the season. So I think they're going to be back up in the top 3-4 very soon and are going to stay there for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, I would agree. It's also these kind of games that Texas plays against Big Ten teams are so crucial in understanding the dominance of Texas's program. I mean, obviously coming off of a national championship, we saw it happen with Wisconsin. It's very hard to reach that goal again. You can get close, but there's always kind of something that gets in the way. Something's a little bit different. Obviously, Texas losing Logan Eggleston was a huge hit to their program, but it's been really fun to see their 2 outsides come in and fill that gap and just dominate. I mean, Maddie Skinner had an insane game per usual. Yeah. And it's just nice to see them still rely on their outsides the way they did when Logan was there and their outsides produced, because that's really what killed Minnesota was Texas's pins.
Yeah, and their middles too. I mean, their one middle, Asia O'Neal, was back for her first game. She was injured prior, so she had a standout game as well, her first game back.
Yeah, and speaking of middles, I don't feel like Minnesota utilized theirs too much. I don't want to see them fall into this trap of the Taylor Landfair-esque of feeding the outsides. I think that I don't know what her name is, but the other Minnesota outside, not Taylor Landfair, I think her number is 8.
Miranda Walker.
Yeah, so she played, I thought, a very good game.
Yeah.
And so I just hope not to see Minnesota fall into that that outside reliancy. Because like you said with Texas, even though their outsides are some of their best hitters and will get the job done, they also utilize their middles to the best of their ability. So, and that could be speaking to a number of things. Minnesota could have been out of system and serve receive, unable to reach the middles, or they just simply were relying on their outsides more than anything to avoid maybe a block, to try to split blocks. It could have been a number of things, but I hope Minnesota doesn't fall into that, especially because they do have strong hitters all around.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree.
All right, so the other game I really want to talk about is the number 8 Florida Gators, which I started them last week, so I'm happy about this.
Yeah.
They defeated number 2 Stanford in a sweep.
Yeah.
On the road, I might add. They were not at home. I didn't watch this game because I was watching Texas, but I couldn't believe when I saw these.
I know.
Because we have sat here, we've complimented both teams. Obviously, I started Florida. We've talked about Stanford nonstop, but I want to read the scores. So it was a close, I mean, this probably had to be a fantastic game. The scores were 25-19, 29-27, and 25-23.
Mm-hmm.
I am so happy to see the Florida Gators continuing the momentum after I started them last because
they got your mojo, they got your juju sent over their way.
No, I'm usually the curse. Like, I'm usually the reason, like, Will be like, oh my God, this team's doing so good. And then, like, with Pitt.
Hey, but Pitt's back on top.
They did. Yeah, that is on my list. We will have to touch on that. But it was just really exciting to see Florida. This is a huge win for them. And I can imagine that in the next rankings that will come out, they're going to be even higher than number 8. And I'm happy to see it. I want to see them keep climbing.
Yeah. I know. I also wasn't able to watch because we were watching Minnesota, Texas. But Stanford, my team to watch, fell down. I don't think they're going to get bumped too far down. And I think it's probably a good learning curve and a good lesson. Any team, no matter what their ranking is a contender. And you have to play your own game. You cannot play down to whatever level you think that they're at because you never know. I don't think it's going to affect Stanford too much. I think they're going to be back in action, winning again. They have a game actually on Sunday. So tomorrow for us, they play Texas. So that'll be
that's big.
That's a really exciting match to watch to see how they bounce back from that sweep that they had.
Yeah, and these games are happening so early on, but they're really important to keep up with and really pay attention to because these are teams that will be in the NCAA tournament. I mean, you're looking at possibly some Sweet 16 matchups here. So I think it's, while anything can happen and things change and injuries happen and lineups happen and whatever, it is really fun to kind of see which team's coming out on top in these big games because there's a very good chance that they could be paired up in the NCAA tournament pretty far along.
Yeah.
So I think that that's one of the big reasons that Florida and Stanford and Texas and Minnesota, these games are kind of important to pay attention to who's coming out on top. So I was excited to see that. I'm excited to actually get to watch Florida in action. Yeah. I haven't been able to do so yet, so I'm very much looking forward to that. But I was happy to see the sweep.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, so next up is going to be probably our longer conversation. Obviously, have to address this, but Volleyball Day in Nebraska was Wednesday night, streamed on the Big Ten Network. This was, I actually don't even really know how to put it into words because I actually found myself to be a little emotional watching it. I'm one of those people who goes to a sporting event and the national anthem and the walkout and everything usually gets me going a little bit. I get a little teary-eyed, the chills, all that. But I thought this was beyond anything I could have imagined it looking like.
Yeah, I have no words, really. You can't put it into words. And I'm sure it was so much more of an experience being there. And I probably would have been bawling the whole time. But being able to see it is just amazing. That's really all I can say. And just how everyone, especially the players and the coaching staff and on all teams, just how they carried themselves during the match. And, they were just also happy to be there. It wasn't about who won or who was what the game looked like necessarily. It was just the camaraderie and everyone just enjoying the moment and feeling the support and the love from the world, essentially supporting them doing the sport that they love. So I thought that was really cool to see. I think everyone would have liked it to have been a little bit tougher of competition for Nebraska just to see more volleyball. But I think it was obviously the right thing to do, it being Volleyball Day in Nebraska, for Omaha to be playing them, but then for them to come out, their heads up high, going all out on it, playing their all, and having good emotions and good intentions after the fact. I mean, you can't be upset about it. That's the thing. It's you can't be upset with a loss in an environment like that. You just need to be happy that you're there and just take it all in. I just texted you and Taylor and I was like, if I was playing, I think I would be shitting myself. I don't think I would be able to physically play volleyball in front of that many people in that environment, because I just would want to soak it all in and just like be there, be present.
Yeah. So for anyone who didn't watch or wasn't able to watch for whatever reason, I don't know why, because I like blocked my Wednesday evening after this, but so Nebraska, who's currently ranked number 4, played Omaha for Volleyball Day Nebraska at Memorial Stadium. We've been talking about it for months since it was announced. I think 4 months ago it was announced or something. So the entire stadium was full. All the way up. They kept showing people in to the point where they could look over the side of the stadium. They were up so high. And they posted some aerial photos, and the court looks so small.
Oh, cool.
So for that many people to come and fill the stands simply to say I was there, was, I think, kind of what touched me the most. And I think then around the court was all standing only. So that was full of students, I'm assuming season ticket holders. There was a seated section, which I'm assuming was for family and that kind of a thing. And then the court was kind of raised. So the teams, the players that were, not currently playing were kind of down lower. And my favorite part of the whole night was that they would pan to each team's bench. They would pan to the coaches. They would pan to girls in between serves. And you could just kind of see them looking around. And I can't even imagine what was going through their heads, seeing all these people that filled this stadium to support women's sports, to support volleyball in Nebraska. And it was just one of the most amazing things. Obviously they treated it as a Cornhuskers home game. So most of the fans were cheering for Nebraska, but the sounds, and you could only hear it through the TV. I can't imagine what it sounded like if you were there, but the sounds coming through the TV speaker when they had these big blocks, big kills, it was just chills the whole entire time. I don't even remember really big moments that happened volleyball wise. I just remember being in awe every time they showed the stadium. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's so hard to explain. I mean, there are so many people there, but also it was blasted everywhere. Everyone was talking about it. So I can't imagine how many people were watching in total. I don't have that number, but
I do.
I can just imagine how many people were there, but then to know how many people were watching the sport is kind of insane to me.
Yeah, so for anyone who didn't see, I don't know how, but if you didn't, there were 92,003 fans there. So Nebraska now set and holds the world record for the most fans in attendance at any women's sporting event ever in the whole world. So anywhere, every sport, anywhere. Nebraska holds that title. And then there were 518,000 viewers, which is the most watched non-conference volleyball match in network history.
Wow.
So big numbers all across the board. And I just thought the production of it was incredible. I did see, I saw a lot of people in comments saying I wish this was against the Badgers. I wish the Badgers would do something like this. And I just don't think it would have felt the same. Well, I think the volleyball might have been a little bit better. I think that it deserved to be 2 Nebraska teams.
Agreed.
The Nebraska fans were there to be state of Nebraska fans, not University of Nebraska, state of Nebraska fans.
Yeah.
And I think that's just really what was the coolest part about it. And they mentioned that Omaha had only been a D1 team since 2015 or 2018.
Yeah.
So it hasn't
recently.
So it hasn't been a long time. And then to put them on this stage is insane. And then I think the other cool thing was that this is now that game was the 306th consecutive home sellout Nebraska has had. So to have 305 consecutive sellouts, but then your 306th to be this scale is insane. And I know a lot of people were talking, okay, they sold it out, but what does that really mean? No, they sold it out. I mean, the only empty seats you could see were around the band because they needed more room. That's all you could see. Otherwise it was a sea of red.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was really cool. And then a couple other numbers I had. They did say that there were fans from all over the world there, which I'm not surprised is very cool. And then they also had over 100 alumni in attendance.
Yeah.
And they would interview some of them, like a lot of them that were on the national championship team in the 90s. Yeah. And for them to kind of like stand there and look around and be like, they mentioned that Nebraska used to lure and bribe people to come into their games after football games. So as people were leaving the stadium, they would bribe them with like popcorn and merch and like just try to get people into the seats. And one of the alumni mentioned, like there were a time where they had 24 people at a volleyball game, and now they're playing in front of 92,000 people. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's like we talked about, it matters to put this on the stage like this. And it really just shows the amount of people that want to watch volleyball. Yes. Like they just want to watch.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it turned out the way that it did. And I'm glad that it proved the point it was meant to prove.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it could have been done any better. Like you said, it needed to be in Nebraska. It needed to be Nebraska teams. Everything was perfect about it. I know people are going to try and come up with a new way to set the record and everything like that, but I don't know how you can top that. It was just perfect in every sense. I mean, chills the whole time, emotional, exciting. The volleyball, like we said, Nebraska swept, but there's still great rallies during it. I mean, it wasn't like it was a dog sweep and they couldn't put up a fight. I thought there were a lot of good rallies during it, but I don't know if anyone's going to be able to top just the experience as a whole.
Right. And I think that's my question for you is like, what is your opinion on, because the fight between the attendance record has been between Wisconsin and Nebraska, because there was the game before. So last year, Florida and Wisconsin set the record at the Kohl Center with over 16,000.
Yes.
And close to 17.
Yep.
And before that, it was Nebraska and Creighton. Yeah. But the most watched game is Wisconsin-Nebraska.
Yes.
So this has been kind of a push and pull with them. Yeah. And as much of a Badger fan as I am, I just think that because this is the first time this was ever done, and it being done in Nebraska, I don't think it would be the same in Wisconsin. I really don't. And I don't think it would have been the same if they were playing the Badgers.
Yeah.
And I think this was just a special standalone event. Agreed. And while I do think it's exciting that there's going to be teams who want to come up with new and creative ways to break that, I don't think that it's appropriate to assume that every single team could fill a football stadium.
Agreed.
As much as I think they would have more people than they would at the Kohl Center. Yeah. I'm sure the Badgers could get close. I don't know if it's the same level as fans in Nebraska. Like, I just think that's the hard truth about it. And I don't want to see big teams take this risk and it not pay off the way it paid off for Nebraska.
Yeah. And I think this was an iconic moment in history. And I think it just needs to stay as that. And not necessarily be people trying to beat it or fight it, things like that.
What else can we do? Like,
it is what it
what's
is.
something else?
Exactly.
Like, okay,
you
Nebraska
just played
another
football
stadium. What's something else you can do to get even more? Like
they already kind of hit the ceiling with it. So I think out of respect for Nebraska and volleyball as a whole, it should be a one-time thing, type of thing. Because I agree. I think people are going to try and create new ways to get more attendance, make matches a little bit more fun and exciting, like with production and things like that. But I think if people try, they're going to swing and miss in a way. Like, it was so meticulously thought out with Nebraska. And I think people just want that number, or other teams just want that attendance record. But I think then you're just trying too hard and you're not actually focusing on the sport and your players and the community of volleyball,
I agree with you. I think that what happened in Nebraska was a win for every single team across the country at every single level, because I think it just proved that people see you, people are watching. and even though it was probably an honor and a privilege for two Nebraska teams to have to hold that, and I'm sure that Nebraska fans aren't taking that lightly, knowing them. But I just think that, I follow a lot of girls who play for other Big Ten teams and Division I teams posting about just how big of a win it was for everyone.
Yeah.
Because to me, it was proof, like physical living proof that people care about the sport and they want to watch. And so I think that it was kind of a I told you so to networks. To a lot of men's sports. I think it was I told you so to a lot of, people who in the sports media who just simply don't give enough attention to this sport. And I think it proved that women's volleyball is on top with women's sports. This is what people want to watch right now. This is what they're into. And I don't know. I just was so overwhelmed with like joy and pride. And it was just really cool to see, and I'm sure you feel the same way, the sport that changed our lives and that we grew up playing, to see it at this level was just like, it was like magic. Like it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, there's so many football fans and men's basketball fans that see this all the time, and to then see it for ourselves in something that we don't get to see it in a lot, I just think was really special. We talked about the repercussions of this, the positive repercussions of this for months, and I think to just see it come true was like it was just incredible. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's all I can say.
The photos are beautiful.
So cool.
I haven't seen them.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend looking at that on the NCAA volleyball Instagram, on Nebraska's Instagram, everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, moving forward. At the same time as Volleyball Day in Nebraska, number 1 Wisconsin's taking on number 2 Arkansas in a doubleheader. Weird.
Yeah.
I thought this was weird. So Wisconsin and Arkansas played on Wednesday and Thursday. Uncommon to see a doubleheader.
Which I've noticed, like this week, a lot of teams have been doing it.
Why?
I don't know. I feel like I've never seen it before, for them to play both teams or the same team 2 nights in a row. Like I get it within the season, but not 2 nights in a row. And some other teams have been doing it too. And I was like, that's so weird. It
is weird because I think it's common to see them play on a Friday night and a Saturday night, but to play the same team just seems a little weird to me.
Yeah.
So quick game 1 recap. I'm trying to like pull back some of my personal opinions on this, but so Wisconsin won in the 5th set 15-13. I have to say that Arkansas looked very good on night 1.
Yeah.
So a couple highlights. It was point for point, like pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
Wisconsin came back in set 3 from a 7-point deficit, which was 24-17, to win the set 26-24.
Yeah.
That's a very big deal. On the flip side, for Arkansas, Jillian Gillen, I believe is how you say her last name. She is a 5'7" outside for Arkansas, who had 22 kills.
That's awesome.
So why I wanted to highlight this is ESPN did a comparison of the average height per starting lineup. So Wisconsin's average height was 6'1", and Arkansas's was 5'10". So if you're thinking about it, Jillian, the outside for Arkansas, is going up against a block that is either Devin Robinson and Carter Booth or Anna Smrek and Caroline Crawford. Keeping in mind, Anna Smrek is 6'9", Carter Booth is 6'7", and I believe Devin Robinson's 6'4".
I think so, something like that.
And then Caroline's like 6'2". She's 5'7", Liv. She's
I know,
around your height.
I appreciate it. I respect it. I love it.
And they also said this is normal for her to have this amount of kills. Her high is like 33. That's her career high. I mean, you don't see this at this level very often. So I wanted to highlight her. I thought she played incredible. She's a 6th rotation as well. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight was that on night 1, Arkansas set their personal attendance record with it was 4,299 fans. So records are just being set everywhere. So Arkansas had their school record.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have like too many thoughts on it. I wasn't like overly impressed with what Wisconsin put out. And personally, as much as I am now a fan of Jillian, I just don't think a 5'7" outside should be having 22 kills on Wisconsin's blocks.
You can pull the block as much as you want, but there's a time when they're going to adjust and they're going to block you. Like, there's only so much you can do coming from experience as not a very big outside hitter.
Right.
There's only so much you can do. And so that is insanely impressive from her. But also,
it just shouldn't. I just don't think that should be happening.
Agreed. What was going wrong in Wisconsin's defense that allowed that to happen?
Mm-hmm. I wasn't overly impressed with Wisconsin in that game at all. However, despite my personal feelings, I did tune in to the game on Thursday, and Wisconsin swept.
Yeah.
It was a completely different game.
Mm-hmm.
It looked the way I thought that game 1 should have looked.
Yeah.
So it really is just kind of proof too that like these teams that sit at the top, Stanford, Wisconsin, and these big teams, it just takes one slip to, kind of stumble, and that can be hard to then control. So I did want to highlight that. I do have a couple more thoughts I want to talk about a little later on with Wisconsin. But overall, I just thought that game 1 was Arkansas had total control. And then Wisconsin was just able to pull through at the end. I mean, we don't see this very often, but I thought in game 1 that in the 5th set, Kelly Sheffield looked like he was kind of rushing a little bit to like try to figure out what's going to get them to the end.
Scrambling.
It was scrambling. Yeah. You don't see that very often. So I wasn't overly impressed. However, game 2, they came back and looked like themselves. So it is what it is. You're not going to have a perfect game every time.
No.
Okay, moving on. Number 25, Purdue upsets number 19, Marquette in a 5-set thriller.
Yeah.
Winning 17-15.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the first time we've really seen anything of Purdue this year. Them being at 25, I think, is tough. But big win for them. Eva Hudson, the sophomore outside, and the freshman of the year had a double-double with 21 kills and 10 digs.
Yep.
So I would imagine she was a big part of the win.
She hit a .309 hitting percentage, and that was her 3rd consecutive double-double. So every game she's played this year has been a double-double, which is awesome for her. And then something else to mention, I believe it's the libero, Maddie Schermerhorn, I believe is how you say her last name.
Okay.
Had 22 digs on the match. But the match as a whole, there were 32 tied scores and 10 lead changes throughout the whole 5-set.
Selfishly, it makes me a little excited because I am going to the Wisconsin Marquette game. So I'm liking, while I don't think Purdue is quite at the same level as Wisconsin, I am liking this Marquette fire because it makes me a little more excited. I'm going to get a decent game, at least more than 3 sets for driving over to Milwaukee. So I'm looking forward to that. I have always kind of been a little indifferent about Purdue, but I think this is a win that should have happened.
Yeah.
I'm impressed it was 5 sets in terms of it from Marquette. But we kind of mentioned Marquette a little bit earlier in the year. I just don't know if they're quite on the level where they should be defeating top of the line Big Ten teams, I guess you could say. So impressive from their side, but I do think this was a win Purdue, 1, should have had, and 2, needed.
Yeah. We talked earlier about Purdue losing a lot of key players, and it's kind of going to be kind of a rebuilding year and not really know what to expect. So I wasn't surprised when they fell down to 25 in the rankings, but I agree. I think that this was a much needed win for their team as a whole to have that confidence again, because I think they can be competitive. I don't think they're going to be as competitive as they have been in years past, but I think they'll still stay within the top 25, especially with Eva Hudson. She's insane. But I think as a whole, every player needs to be having an outstanding performance like her to be up at the top, at least of conference, if not at the national rankings.
Yeah, I would agree. Mm-hmm. All right, next up, what we kind of touched on earlier is number 10 Pitt finally comes through for me. Finally, with a sweep over number 15 University of Kentucky at Kentucky. Mm-hmm. This was nice. This was a nice little refresher. I mean, again, keeping in mind that Pitt's ranked at number 10.
Yeah.
And Purdue, this dominant team for many years, is 25. So Pitt's up there regardless of how their season started. But it was nice to see them have a nice sweep. I thought it was kind of said a lot. I mean, University of Kentucky sitting at number 15, and they beat them at home for Kentucky. So I thought that was a good win. I'm excited to see where Pitt goes from here. It feels like this could be the momentum shift they needed a little bit, maybe getting into the groove a little more. So I'm excited to see where they go from here. Probably won't move too much in the rankings since their win was over number 15, but it was nice to see.
For sure. And with that, I just wanted to mention that they had their freshman right side hitter, Olivia Babcock, was one of their standout players of that match.
The right side?
Yeah.
Whoa,
right side.
okay.
She hit a 500, 11 kills. And then Valeria Vasquez Gomez, who's their huge outside, who everyone talks about, she only had 5 kills on the match, but she hit a .714 hitting percentage from those 5 kills. Wow. So I think probably because that they were doing so well, they moved things around, but it was kind of shocking to see them sweep Kentucky and her not have as many kills as she typically does. But
and if I remember correctly, they really swept them.
Yeah, I think I can try to.
Yeah. 25-14, 25-21, 25-22.
Yeah.
That's an easy win.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like Kentucky might have a big player out on injury.
Oh, okay.
Which, not taking away,
no.
but
makes a little bit more sense.
Lots of comments about Bree Kelly.
Okay.
Yeah, she must play for Kentucky. That's what it's looking like. Anyway. Yeah. Prayers up for Bree Kelly. Yeah. Did she get hurt? She hurt what looked like her ankle towards the end of set 1. Came back on crutches in set 3.
Oh.
So anyway, thank you, random people on NCAA Volleyball Instagram. Okay, great. And next is, I'm kind of excited about this one too. So we talked about Ohio State earlier this year. And number 11, Georgia Tech won over number 12, Ohio State in 4 sets, which looked like it was at Ohio State based on Instagram.
Yes.
I don't know where Georgia Tech came from.
I don't either.
But they have just been moving their way, clawing their way up. This is a big win. I mean, I wouldn't say that Ohio State is up to standards that it has been in the past year, but with Emily Londat being the offensive player of the week last week, I just think it's kind of shocking in a way, but also not. I guess I'm kind of indifferent about it. Like, I think that Emily Londat could be what secures wins for Ohio State, but again, like you kind of mentioned, she can't carry them through everything. They've been going through a lot of changes, a lot of roster changes, and they're fairly young. But Georgia Tech just kind of coming in and just taking what they want. Apparently,
they are 3-0, playing 2 top-ranked teams.
Yeah, and this looked also like a little bit of an easy pull for Georgia Tech. Set 1, they lost 20-25, came back and won 25-19, 25-15, and then 27-25 in the last. So it doesn't look like it was too hard of a battle, except towards the end. But yeah, lots of comments about the big Big Ten not looking too hot this year. Lots of comments cheering for Georgia Tech. So good to see. Good for them.
Yeah. And they do play each other tonight. So this would be September 2nd at 6 p.m. Georgia Tech plays Ohio State again tonight, and it will be streamed on Big Ten Plus. So a rematch. Again, they're playing the same teams shortly after. They already played them. So it'll be interesting. I'm definitely going to tune in for that one because I'm dying to see Georgia Tech, and I'm dying to see Ohio State and what they're coming up with. So that I'm excited to watch that.
Yeah, I'll be tuning into that one as well. I'm very intrigued. Okay, and then the last bullet point that I have is number 14, Penn State gets their first home win against number 22, Western Kentucky University in 4. Yeah. And then Jess Mruzik, their 6'1" senior outside, had 21 kills and a hitting percentage of .333% for Penn State.
Yeah.
Pretty big.
Yeah. She also got 5 blocks on that match and is 2 kills away from getting her 1,000th kill.
Oh, good for her. That's exciting.
Yeah.
The scores for that game were Western Kentucky took set 1 25-22, and then Penn State won 25-18, 25-19, 25-18. So got their groove going. Probably something small as cleaning up service errors or anything like that came through and took it.
Yeah.
Again, I can see in the comments it looks like a Western Kentucky star player was out. Not that takes away from anything, but something to note as well.
Sure. And something else about Penn State, which I didn't know before doing some more research, they entered this weekend as the national leaders in blocks per set with 12 blocks per set.
And that's on a not hot start to their season at all.
Exactly. I was quite surprised. And then with that, when they played Georgia Tech, when Penn State lost to Georgia Tech, they had 17 blocks on that match.
Whoa, my God.
So, and that just kind of like solidified it because I was like, kind of weird. I believe it obviously because it's there, but like I got to look into it. And then I saw that I was like, okay.
So what do you think could be causes in them losing games where they're defending so well? You think it's serve-receive? They're just out of system?
Serve-receive and probably attack errors. Like if their defense is that solid, I think it might just be the connections between a new setter and some new hitters and then fresh new back row players with their service errors. That's my guess.
I think something I'm seeing a lot too in the games I've been watching is service errors. I think there's a lot from both teams usually. I mean, you're talking like 8, 9, 11, 12. I mean, it's upwards of like 14 sometimes, and that's half the game. Like that's a lot of service errors to have. So yeah, I'd be interested to know. Again, we didn't get to watch Penn State, but what made them stumble when you're putting up 17 blocks a game? Like that's a lot. So kind of interesting there. I think you have a good point. I mean, if you're out of system, you're not using some of your bigger hitters. Relying too much on your outsides is just not great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have anything else that I didn't touch on?
No, I think you touched on all of them that I had. I think that's it.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to move to our start versus bench segment. Did I start last time?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you start this time? You want to start with bench or start?
Sure. I can start with bench.
Okay.
My bench, I think it's a hot take.
I'm obsessed with a hot take. I want to hear this.
And obviously, like we said last week, you can always get off the bench. You can become a starter again. But I think, so my bench is a player. And I think she has a lot of expectations and to hold. And so far, I have not seen that. And previously in other seasons, I don't think, not that she didn't deserve some of the titles, but I think there were times when I don't know how to word this. I think she deserved them, but I think sometimes her effort in the games kind of pissed me off. So my bench player is Taylor Landfair from Minnesota. And looking at her stats from the 3 matches that they've played so far, she has not been the top leader in kills, nor the top leader in really anything. So her coming, she was the preseason All Big Ten selection. She's been Big Ten Player of the Year, Freshman of the Year, right? Freshman of the Year.
Yeah, she's one of the most decorated. Yeah, she's one of the huge, like, biggest decorated players in the Big Ten right now.
And for her to have so many, and then to look at her playing, I don't see the same thing. Like you see online all these accolades, and then you watch her play, and at times I think she's lazy. I don't think she does not play defense very much. There was one play in particular that they were playing Baylor, I believe, and the ball came right to her, and she was just standing up, and it hit her. She didn't make an effort. She didn't get down in a ready defensive position. She didn't care. I almost feel like she's all about the swings at times, and she just wants to get the blocks, and she just wants to get the kills, and serve, receive, and defense is not her thing. So she's not really going to try. Yeah. There's been other times when watching her, like a ball is shanked, but people are running for it and you could have gotten it, and she's just walking to the ball or something like that. And that personally bugs me because I was a defender. I was also an outside and threw my body on the court a lot to save a ball, even if it wasn't playable. And knowing that she is supposed to be this most decorated player, a Big Ten accolade, things like that, you should be putting all of your effort into the game. You should be wanting to get the ball and things like that. And so I just haven't really been impressed with her so far. Against TCU, she had 13 kills, 1 ace, 2 blocks, 8 digs. Baylor, I couldn't find any of her kill stats. She had 1 ace. She was not mentioned in like the lead scorer. And on their website, I can't like click onto her bio and like see her stats. When looking, so she wasn't mentioned at all, even in the article against Baylor. And then against Texas, she had 11 kills, 1 ace, 10 digs. So not horrible numbers by any means, but not where I think they should be for her being how decorated. And again, her counterpart, McKenna Wooker, the other outside, has been putting outstanding numbers. And in my head, that kind of play correlates better with all of those accolades than Taylor Lamphair's.
Yeah, I would agree. There's times this year that has felt like she's been easily picked on this year, especially in serve receive, which I just don't feel was very common in previous years. I think that players were avoiding her and almost keep letting Minnesota keep the ball in system in hopes they set someone else and not her on the outside. And yeah, I mean, it's so hard when, you know, sometimes I think keeping in mind how young these girls are and that kind of pressure, I think, but it is hard to kind of watch sometimes and be like, you know, I don't know, like there's just something that's just not hitting the same. And this is based solely on her play. We don't know her personally. We don't know what's going on in her life, but it is just hard. You have a lot of eyes on you, including ours, because of your accolades going into the season. And I just think that, you know, I hope that it's not a case of this isn't a big game, I don't need to be a big player.
Exactly.
I hope that's not the case. I hope she kind of finds her groove a little bit more, because with the other outside putting up numbers like that and adding Taylor Lamphair's traditional numbers, Minnesota could be doing almost a little better than the hot start they're already off. And I think having defenders like Kylie Murr, who has shown up and shown out for Minnesota so far, I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see a few changes with Taylor Lamphair's back row. However, you are then losing a huge attacker from the back row because she's very successful. So yeah, a tricky situation, but I would agree with you. It definitely feels a little different. Different this year. All right. It's my turn for my bench. So mine is not based so much, honestly, in personal opinion. It's going to sound like it is based on everything I've already been saying about this year, but I'm not happy about this at all. And it's when you're looking at the numbers, I did research to back my argument up. And when you're looking at the numbers and when you're watching it with your eyes, it's not making sense.
Exactly.
And it's really getting under my skin.
Yep.
And so with that, and I'd like to reiterate what Liv said, this is not a permanent bench.
Correct.
But for right now it is Kelly Sheffield's dance between Sarah Franklin, Yulia Orzel, and Temi Thomas Aguilera.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Adding the personal element to it is that I felt a lot of times during my college career, I was the piece being moved around. And it does a toll on you. I understand it's part of the game. It's part of the competition. Be part of the team. I hear you. I get it. Doesn't make it any easier. I worry that some of this is what's comfortable. You know, when Yulia and Sarah are on the court, it's almost identical to the lineup that played last year, just adding Carter Booth in. I worry that comfortability will prevent Wisconsin from taking the next step, which is making it past the Elite Eight, the Final Four, and getting back into that national championship spot. We have discussed plenty of times that Wisconsin's pins, mostly the outside, have always felt shaky. I don't think it's felt not shaky since Molly Haggerty was there. I just don't understand, and it could be a number of things that I don't know. I don't have all the answers. From the information I have and what I'm seeing, it doesn't make sense.
No.
Why he's doing this rotation and dance. So I did a little research to back up my point. Sarah Franklin should be playing all the time. Period. Okay. She has been dominating the front row.
Okay.
I wouldn't say she's the biggest blocker. I wouldn't say she's the best defender, but she has become a go-to player in the front and the back row. And that might be that sense of comfort. Again, I don't know, but her numbers have shown she's at 48 kills already for the year, and she's hitting a 3.69 kill per set.
Okay.
That's a big number.
Yeah.
So I'm going to push Sarah Franklin aside and say, you know what? You've proven it. You go, girl. Do your thing. Temi has 29 kills total. She has played significantly less than Sarah, but is averaging 2.42 kills per set.
Wow.
Big numbers.
Yeah.
Yulia has 11 kills total on the year and is hitting a 0.73 kill per set. That's a big gap.
Yeah.
Where I'm getting, I understand it's early in the year. They're trying this, they're trying that, trying to see what works. Where I think it's like making my skin crawl a little bit is I don't want it to become their front row is not that big, so we'll let Julia play. And their front row is really big, so let's have Temi play.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that dynamic happen. And this isn't common for Wisconsin to be toying so much with a starting lineup.
Agreed.
It feels like they usually pick their lineup, and it takes a little while if they're going to make a change. Yeah. But when they make the change, they stick to the change.
Yeah.
These past few games have felt like a mess a little.
To be honest, it feels like, I apologize, Pioneer Volleyball a little bit when you're throwing different lineups in every game and you're throwing different people in every game in different spots. You don't form a connection. You don't form that camaraderie. You don't build the team. You're never going to make it to the national championship again when you're constantly changing your outside hitters, because then they can't get comfortable playing with the person who's usually next to them, especially on defense and serve receive. That's the biggest thing about changing your lineup, is that you have to stick with it for a long enough time so the players can become comfortable and trust that person next to them, that they're going to get it or that they won't, and with him changing them, especially if they're playing all the way around, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, and what I'm struggling with is I think that is probably the same thing that Kelly is struggling with, is that Wisconsin has a unique situation where they have so many of the same returners that he could have the exact same lineup he had last year. That's a luxury that not a lot of teams have, and Kelly Sheffield does, which as a Wisconsin fan is incredible and very nice to see. However, you have a fifth year who is one of the top hitters in the Big Ten, who came from a university that they had not made the postseason, and she was right behind Taylor Landfair in the number of kills in the conference. So what I'm not understanding, and this is nothing against Sarah, nothing against Julia, what I'm not understanding is I'm hoping that they're letting Temi as a fifth year, who carried Northwestern on her back for 4 years. I'm hoping that when she's not playing, it's because she's getting a break and not because she doesn't deserve to play over some of the other girls on the team. That being said, I just think that the numbers are showing where she's at skill-wise, and I don't think it's fair to all three of them to keep yanking, pulling, moving. I don't think it's fair to your setters. You're already running a 6-2, which is tricky enough, and no one else is being tugged around. So I don't know if that's why I'm noticing it more than anything, is because it's not happening in other positions. It happened a little with putting Yulia as libero, and now it's Guchkin again, but there's just something about it that's not sitting right with me. And usually I don't disagree with decisions Kelly Sheffield's making, so I'm choosing to put my hope that this will not remain on my bench and that there's a reason for this. But against Arkansas the second time on Thursday, Temi played front row and Yulia played her back row. And I think that's a smart thing to do moving forward. I think Temi, I haven't really paid attention to her serve receive, but when I've been watching her defensively, looks pretty decent in the back row. But if you're going to have someone play Temi's back row, it makes sense to be Yulia because she can hit. So I can see him trying to figure out how to utilize all three of them. I just hope that it doesn't fall into a level of comfortability where he's like, this is what worked last year. These girls are used to playing with each other. They won the Big Ten conference together. I hope it doesn't fall into that and become kind of what happened last year with Chanel Bramschreiber, I think is how you say her last name. She, for those of you who don't know, she was a DS libero who transferred from Baylor after her 4 years were up. She wanted to play her fifth year at Wisconsin, and she was benched by the NCAA for violating a recruiting or to play professional recruiting process. It was so ridiculous. But anyway, when her suspension was up, we didn't really see her.
No.
And I don't want to see Wisconsin lose the luxury of having Temi Thomas-Ilera. I really don't. So
especially because you're going to have Sarah Franklin and Julia again. You're going to have another year with them. So why not use this one player that you have for one season, utilize her, use what she has, and then she'll be gone next year, and then you can bring those players back into that comfortable state.
Right. So long story short, it feels too comfortable to me. It feels like they're reverting back to something they knew worked enough. And it's just not sitting right with me. So on a positive note, I'm looking forward to how this changes when Big Ten play starts and conference play starts. I'm looking forward to seeing how this translates to home games at the field house. And not these like tournament doubleheader weird things they're doing. But I am looking forward to seeing how this moves forward. I just hope it goes in the direction of how do we win games versus that comfortability that I mentioned. So long-winded answer, but lots of things I wanted to touch on. So that is my bench, is not Kelly Sheffield, but his dance, that this puppeteer thing he's kind of doing. I'm not a fan of it. It kind of hits home a little bit for me, and I just don't want to see it continue. So looking forward to seeing what they do next.
Yeah, I agree on all levels. I agree.
All right, let's start. Let's go back to a positive.
For my starter, we already mentioned it is a team, and my starter is Georgia Tech.
Nice. Yep. I got you there.
Yep. There's a few other things that I wanted to hit on. I mean, we already talked about them. They've come out of the woodworks. Don't know where they came from, but they're putting up numbers and they're beating good teams. When they played Ohio State, their senior outside Tamara Oteen, maybe, and their other outside, who's a junior, Bianca Bertolino. They both had double doubles, and Oteen had 16 kills and 14 digs. Bertolino had 14 kills, 10 digs, and then their freshman outside, Larissa Mendez, had 14 kills, 5 digs, hitting a 303 hitting percentage. So I think, which is interesting too, I think they're doing a very similar thing as Kelly Sheffield is right now, because they have 3 outsides who are putting up numbers, and they're doing a like 3 rotation outside hitter thing, I think. I haven't seen them play, but based on the numbers and their positions, that seems kind of what they're doing. Again, they had Oteen had 14 kills against Penn State and 9 blocks as a team. Mendez had 14 kills. Bertolino had 15 kills, and Mendez had 11 kills against South Florida. So they're just putting up big numbers all around on their outsides, and their defense is good too. Again, they're beating top-ranked teams, so I'm excited to see what they can bring moving forward. I will be watching them play tonight against Ohio State to really get a grasp of how they're doing. But right now, they're my starters.
Love it. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to watch them too. I feel like they're a team that hasn't really been on our radar too much, and then all of a sudden they're like, here we are, and now I want to watch.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So my starter is a player. I'm overly impressed, I would say. I really have just kind of admired watching her kind of take this stage and just she feels very composed. She feels like a leader. She feels like the future a little bit. And so my starter is Bergen Riley, the setter from Nebraska. I don't know much about being a setter, but being a hitter, I know how much they have to be leaders. They have to be composed. They have to be thinking on the spot. When you're watching her, if you don't know, you don't really get the vibe that she's a freshman.
Yeah.
I think it is overly impressive to step into Nebraska and become a starting setter as a freshman, period. And then to also then take that role, make it your own, making connections with hitters who have been there previously. And just kind of, it feels like she has shown why she deserves that spot and why she deserves it in a 5-1 manner. And I'm just, every time I'm just very impressed with her. I think, and I mean this in the best way, is that I don't have to pay a lot of attention to her because she's not making errors.
Yeah.
So I'm more focused on the defense. I'm more focused on their hitters because she's running the offense so well that you're actually not really paying that much attention. And I mean that in the best way.
Yeah.
So very impressed with her. She has over 100 assists already this year, and she had just played in front of the largest crowd anyone's ever seen, and it didn't look like it bothered her at all.
No.
I thought Harper Murray was looked a little younger than she has in previous years, or in previous games, I mean.
Okay.
And I didn't see that out of Bergen Riley.
No.
It just felt like she went out there, she did her job. They were playing in the elements. It was a little windy, but she was putting the ball where it needed to be. She never looked disheveled. She never looked confused. It just feels like she's right where she needs to be.
Yep.
And I'm just very impressed. So my starter this week's Bergen Riley, the freshman setter from Nebraska.
I totally agree. From day one, I've been impressed with her and have been looking forward to watching her play. And she is more than I ever expected her to be as a freshman setter, especially at Nebraska. I mean, she has fit right in, and she looks like she could be a junior, senior, upperclassman setter. Looks like she has a ton of experience playing in high intensity games, in big matches, things like that, which is amazing for Nebraska to get, because you don't have to, like you said, you don't have to worry about her. You're not going to be like, oh, our freshman setter, I don't know how she's going to do against Wisconsin. I don't know how she's going to do against this big crowd. Her composure is everything. And it's very, very impressive coming from a 17, 18-year-old female. Like, just in general, that's very impressive. So kudos to her. I am super excited to see how she does the rest of the year. Yeah,
I mean, especially her duo with Harper Murray, I mean, you're looking at the future of Nebraska's program. I mean, she will play from now until the rest of her career.
Yeah.
So long as nothing gets in the way. So I was very impressed with her. So she's my starter this week.
Love it.
Very good. That was a good one. Live with the hot take there a little bit. Okay, Liv, what do we have moving forward game-wise that we have not mentioned yet? Do you know?
I know LSU plays Creighton tonight at 5. I want to tune into that and see Journey Robinson, LSU's huge outside freshman.
Is that on, is that streaming on?
That I'm not sure. I was trying to find it, but I couldn't before we hopped on. Again,
Oh, Colgate and Penn State are playing as we speak.
Now. I think there's a few other games tomorrow. Let me just check the Big Ten to see.
There's a few more. Obviously, this doesn't matter because this is going to come out on Sunday. Yeah. It's Saturday. But for anyone who wants to know, today at 4, Delaware State and Belmont. 5 is Georgia Tech and Ohio State. 6 is Kent State and Iowa. And 6 is Syracuse and Michigan State. Sunday. Wait, I have to filter it so I don't accidentally read.
I know.
I don't want to accidentally read soccer.
Sunday.
Oh, Illinois State and Illinois.
Yep, Tennessee and Wisconsin.
Ooh, yeah, I'm excited for that.
And then
Iowa State and Iowa face off on Wednesday.
Yep.
Looks like some smaller teams on the Big Ten Plus.
Yep.
What do we have for Big Ten here? Look at us, so prepared.
I know.
Well, there's like 100 things going on. I don't know, okay?
And it's so hard to filter every volleyball schedule. Like, you have to go on the Big Ten Plus to look at this. You have to look on SEC Network for this. And, like, I need just it all compiled into one list, please. If someone can do that for me, a schedule of every volleyball game
actually
this season with where it can be streamed, I would appreciate it.
Here's what's coming up on the Big Ten Network.
Okay.
Drum roll. Okay. What day is it? Oh, the 2nd.
The 2nd.
Okay. Wednesday, September 6th, we have Creighton at Nebraska. That's going to be a great game.
Ooh.
And that's at 8 p.m. No, 7 p.m. Central Time.
Okay.
September 7th, Thursday, is Arizona at Wisconsin. That's going to be on FS1. That's at 7 p.m. Central Time.
Okay.
We have September 14th, which is Thursday, so the next Thursday. Illinois versus USC at West Lafayette, Indiana. So that must be at Purdue at 4:30. UCF at Purdue at 7. Mm-hmm. And then it looks like mostly just that Purdue tournament, which consists of Illinois, USC, UCF, and Purdue.
Okay.
So nothing too crazy.
No.
When does Big Ten play start? Oh, here we go.
That. Yeah, there's still a lot of non-conference games that are filtering through right now.
September 20th, Rutgers at Penn State.
Ooh, okay.
So that's when it looks like it kicks off, is the 20th. I know Wisconsin starts the 22nd. They start coming.
Yeah, so it'll be that weekend that Big Ten play starts and conference starts for everyone. So that's super exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting because lineups will be a little more set.
Yeah.
I think, and you're going to start getting a singular home game. So you can really see the atmosphere, the students, and everything. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, tune into what you can. And we will be back early next week to do some recapping from the rest of this weekend and early next week, and cover the new rankings that will come out.
Yes.
And I'm very excited about it. So, all right, we will see you next time.